everybody, this is Josh Cook, aka Seizures Pals, and we're back in the studio today again for Song of Week number 14. And this one I'm excited about because I have a new toy. It's from Sound Toys. Actually, I got the Sound Toys 5 bundle, which has a whole lot of cool stuff. But the main reason why I got it is for the Decapitator, which is a really awesome saturator, but it saturates in a different way than the saturators that I've had in the past. It really focuses on a warm, analog, low, and just this warmth that it brings to the sound. So I'm all happy about that. Analog's pretty sweet. So the bundle that I got was actually $200 because of the academic bundle, so to speak, or the academic pricing. It's at $200, you're saving over 50%. It's normally a $500 bundle. So if you're a student and or teacher and you're looking for a really awesome bundle of effects that, in my opinion, is going to be pretty timeless down the line, go for Sound Toys. They're pretty awesome. You got the Echo Boy. You got a really cool tremolo. There's a bunch, so just check them out. We're going to be talking about the Decapitator today, though, because I used it on just about everything in this session. You know when you get a new toy, or in this case, a new plugin, and you just blast it on everything? That was me today. Actually, technically last night and today. We'll talk about it, though. So I think the sound that was affected the most was this bass sound right here. So lately I've been using multiband dynamics to isolate only mid-lows, mids, highs, that kind of stuff, basically to get rid of sub-frequencies, just because I'm really happy with the crossover that the multiband dynamics has, especially when you're separating two individual parts of an instrument, the same instrument. So for example, if I wanted to have a synth and isolate just the sub of the synth and then isolate all the top end, I would probably use the multiband dynamics as opposed to two filters, because oftentimes you get a little notch in between where those two filters are set, and there's like a little null of frequencies there. So you can play around with it and get it to work, but the multiband dynamics processor here takes that into consideration right off the bat. So that all said, I should probably slow down. I'm a fast talker at times. That all said, let's listen to this bass sound without the Decapitator. And then here's with. So I had to, it was so warm that I had to actually really boost the high end here. If I get rid of that, you'll hear what happens. So you can also hear there was tons of sub-frequencies that were added in when I got rid of this EQ. That's because I'm trying to isolate those sub-frequencies just to the sub-bass. So if we listen again, now we have tons of lows. And this sub-bass was actually made exactly the same way that Slink does it. If you guys haven't checked out Slink with a Y, S-L-Y-N-K, check out his YouTube channel and subscribe. The dude is very smart when it comes to producing. He knows his stuff. So he was the guy that got me off of sine waves as sub basses. I mean, I still use it from time to time. It's all context, but I've been taken to the dark side of the triangle wave, and it's definitely giving enough overtones to really help fill out that sub bass spectrum. So just really quickly, watch his full video on it. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there's two triangle waves. One is set to course 2, one is set to course 1. Those are like octaves, so they're an octave apart. The higher octave is down a little bit in terms of volume. The glide is turned on. You're going to want to select this guy here so there's no crazy FM synthesis going on. And also, yeah, I think that's most of it, to be honest. Yeah, that's the majority of it there. And then he also has a bunch of effects. Like he has the preset for the saturator in Ableton called Warm Up Lows. So try adding that. The sub isolator, there it is again, the multiband dynamics. An auto filter just to sweep out everything below 30 hertz. I mean, I'm already doing that over here. Where is it? The sub ISO. So, oh yeah, it's everything below 120 hertz is being heard, and then everything below 30 hertz I don't want. That's some low rumbly garbage. And then, I don't know, I watched a tutorial video the other day, and they were talking about how you should put compression kind of in the middle of your chain in between your subtractive EQ and then your colored EQ. I agree, but I don't think that's true for sidechain compression. And in this particular case, the guy had said that that's where you would put sidechain compression. Not necessarily true. I mean, it's all in context, but what if I have reverb in the middle of the chain and I want to sidechain the reverb and the original sound source? It would make sense to have this later. Also, it doesn't make sense to put this before the limiter because that pumping action going into the limiter can do some screwy things. So I like to put certain things like my limiter towards the end, and then a utility and also a spectrum EQ. And depending on if you want to see your spectrum EQ pumping or not, you can put that before or after the sidechain compression. So anyway, that's a long little rant about using that there. But also, if you use Ableton, get an old version of the Ableton 8 compressor. Slink in his video on, what is it? Is it the sub bass one? No, it's just on sidechain compression. There's a whole video on sidechain compression, and he has a link so you can download it. I just opened up one of my old sessions, and instead of hitting upgrade, I went over to my user library, and I dragged this over, and I saved it as Ableton 8 compressor. Why I'm saying to use that is the sidechain function is known for having less clicks than the newer compressor, although the newer compressor is great too for its own reasons. For sidechain compression, I like to use the Ableton 8 compressor. So, one more time, that sound is... Let's add in some more. You guys haven't heard this yet, have you? I'm going to let you check it out. Here's a bit of the song. Guilty Canadian alert. Okay, so that's like the part A. I'll save the part B as something suspenseful for later. Oh man, I talk fast already when I have coffee. You better have fast ears. I had one of my bosses say once, she's like, "You talk too fast. Can you slow down?" I was just like, "Nah, people just don't listen fast enough." That's not necessarily true. I do talk too fast. Anyway, this lead sound here, I think it's this one. Nope. This one. I want it to come out a little more forward. I want it to be like right up in your face, kind of where the bass is, but not stepping on any toes in terms of frequencies. What I'm going to do is for this finite EQing stuff, actually I'm going to use, I just trust this, and it's just a cooler looking plugin, more so than the utility. But I'm going to use the BX Solo by Plugin Alliance. A really awesome plugin if you want to just check out your mix in mono, side left or right, and you can switch the left and right, and you can also sort of have a couple notches of how wide or how narrow you want it. I just use it mostly for the mono and side information stuff. So, or I guess is it mid inside mono? No, mono inside. Anyway, so here we go. Here's the mono version, and we're going to EQ that lead a little bit. One more time. Is this guy? This guy. Why do I call it bass top? Let's call it trancy top. The fancy trancy top. All right. Yeah, let's go into this EQ for a sec. it's a lot of reverb built into the original patch. It's called Pegboard Nerds 2. I think it was actually a patch by Echo Soundworks. That guy, he's got some really good sound design skills, so I tend to trust his ADSR, Loop Masters, and Sound Academy, I guess, patches. He works for a lot of those companies, so I think he gets some nice overlap with his videos that way. And probably some good coin, too. Anyway, so that's the preset that I was using. You know me, I like presets. I do like designing my own sounds from scratch, but when I'm in the zone, I just want to flip through presets, find something close, adjust it, and move forward from there. Sound design I find is best to put on its own day kind of thing. And sometimes you go to start a day of sound design, you're like, I'm going to create 5 new sounds, 2 new bass sounds, 2 new leads, an effect, blah, blah, blah. And you come up with one bass sound, you're like, that's it. I want to create a song with it. So whatever strikes you in terms of inspiration, just go with it. So let's listen to that again. This Devil Lock compressor is pretty cool. Basically, from what I understand, it was modeled after a compressor that sucked. And it sucked so bad that it was really unique in a way. And as a result, people really liked how it was unique. And then they kind of liked that it was crappy. And then as a result, it wasn't even crappy. It was sought after. So it's just funny how sometimes the path of least resistance isn't the path you want to take. Sometimes go the longer way. I mean, if this is going to destroy your sound and you're stuck using that sound, try to find a way to make it work. Put yourself in a box and work your way out of it kind of thing. Anyway, so I wanted to kind of destroy the sound a little bit more, but subtly. So I have the crunch way up, and then I just kind of crushed it a tiny bit. Nothing too intense. I still want that synth to pop out a little more forward, but I'm not going to deal with that too much right now. I'll show you guys the second section. What I want to do today is I'm actually going to add a little bit to the song here while we're doing this thing. So let's listen to the second part. I want to put a little, excuse me, stutter right before that. So be here. So Command A for all. Up 3 semitones to the minor third. Same deal. 1, 2, 3. Is that even? Not seeing any MIDI data there. I don't even know if there is any. Either way. And then the drums are fine. See how that sounds? So the claps are anticipated. They're coming in before the bass drum hit, so I actually have to have... It's hard to explain, but basically I can't just do like a nice copy and paste. I want the claps to be happening on all the main beats too, so I kind of have to get ahead of the beat a little bit and copy my first pattern before that stutter actually starts to get that first clap to line up. And then maybe a crash there. Maybe. And then I don't think I delete or duplicate. I want to try reverse drums just for that part there. That sounds cool. All right. So I wanted that to be a bit louder, but I think I went a bit overkill with those little leads poking in. Let's try that again. That works. I think for that part, I would also kill the reverb almost entirely to get it a bit more forward. Yeah, I just wanted a little bit of reverb, maybe a little more there. That works. All right. I'm not a big fan of those big build-up snare fill thingies, but we're going to do one of those. It's just somehow suited. Plus, this is like a really progressive track. It's just kind of like new layer here, stutter, new layer, gap, new layer. So it'd be nice to have one gradual build. Snare, build. Let's go into Ableton's sounds. Check out the different snare sounds. That's what they start with for snares. I'm sorry, that's just weird. It's kind of really close to what I want, actually. Let's drag in a drum rack. Get back to that 2020. I'm going to put that there just in case. Be cool for like a reggae tune or something. Ableton has some really weird sounds, like some really glitchy stuff. I've actually checked out FL Studio's sound bank, and it's like It's funny because I'm an electro producer, and so much of their stuff works really well for electro and dubstep. And I feel like Ableton's more like, I guess they think that they're the people doing the most composing on Ableton are like glitch producers. There's a lot of glitch stuff in here. Anyway, kind of takes you outside of the norm sometimes, which is kind of cool. So we got a couple snares here. What do we got? What octave am I in? Here we go. All right. Where was it? I think it was. All right. Command Shift M. New MIDI track. Let's just start with one of these fancy tings. Yeah, I kind of want both snare sounds to be working together there. And then sometimes it's fun to do like a pitch thing at the end or something. There's a thing by Waves, Morgan Page talks about it. It's like this pitch shifter tool that's really great for this stuff. And I used to have access to Waves bundle through a buddy of mine, and then I stopped producing at his studio. So needless to say, I'm going to be saving up for one of those bundles. I think Diamond is the one I'm going to get, the D or X Click, X Hum, X Buzz. It's like, it's hard to find that kind of software through other companies that works as well, and it's really good for if you're doing live bands or professional audio for film or anything like that. So look into the Waves Diamond bundle. Last month it was on for $1,000, down from $3,000. I'm such a sucker for a deal that I almost bought it, being like, I'm gonna save $2,000. I just didn't have $1,000 to spend, so I'm gonna wait for the next round and save my monies. Anyway, Sound Toys at $200. That was it was an easy call. Let's check this out. I'm going to do it. I'm going to cheese it right up. Let's do it. Let's cheese it right up. Let's double up one more time. Someone who doesn't know when to stop betting, just double it up. All right. Huh. Oh, it's just so loud. I guess we'll work with that, and I'm still going to do the old transpose trick. It's just not as fancy without that like micro shift kind of thing. It's working in semitones, which is kind of big increments, but you can use cents too, but it just doesn't make sense. All right. Let's go up 2 octaves. Right now I got one that's being transposed up and one that's being transposed down. Just to be clear, I just clicked the little transpose button on the actual wave editor here. Is it called a wave editor? Whatever it's called. And then through automation in my sequencer window here, I'm just kind of messing around with the number of semitones that is being transposed up or down. Now that's creating a whole lot of low end on those snares. I'm going to be cautious about this. And everything below 140 hertz I'm going to get rid of. Okay, a couple things. I might put a little echo so it's that sort of idea. Wish I could beatbox better and do that better, but you get the idea. And I'm going to try to throw in a decapitator again because it's pretty darn cool. Let's go through some of the drum presets. The decapitator sounds really cool until it starts to get transposed, and then I'm not as happy with that. I just want to hear those sounds not transposed with the decapitator. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of back and forth on this one with that last fill there. It's like, I don't quite, maybe that'll work. You see, that's just too loud, and then this. It's this bottom guy here. It's too loud. I gotta take a step back here for a second. Well, when we went up, it wasn't as bad. That kind of works. I don't know which one I'm transposing the 9. Oh, it's the second one, the weaker one. Yeah, that kind of works. Yeah, and then I think what I'm going to do is I have the Echo Boy on my third return right now. I might not want, I think I'm going to want something more simple, but let's try it out. You never know what happens. Yeah, it's too much. I'm just going to create a return track. I'm going to pull in reverb. Quality high, turn off some of these extra guys here. No spin. Oh, what am I doing? Sorry, shit. It's supposed to be a delay. Alright, link. Try up all the way. I'm going to offset this a little bit. That's a dead mouse trick. Take your delays, and if you want like a quarter note delay, excuse me, instead of setting it perfectly, because what's going to happen is you're going to have every one of those delays line up on a quarter note when you have a snare happening or a bass drum happening or some hi-hats, and again, you're layering transients on top of each other, which is going to make for big spikes in your master volume. So if you want more headroom, you can just offset that a little bit. So the first one will land basically exactly on time. Next one's a little bit late, and then a little bit later, and a little bit later. And it gives a natural delay effect, which is cool. Our ears are used to that, and it also gives your mix a little bit more room as well, too. Next, I'm going to throw a utility on, because normally I find that if I crank up this utility, I have a little bit more leeway with flexibility in my actual send. And let's try that out. I just want to hear it for a second. Yeah, my feedback's really low, so that would help. Yeah, that's the idea. Let's listen to that, and yeah, right here. I'm gonna mess with the time value a little bit. Let's try 8. I think these are represented as 16th notes, right? So if you hit 1, it's a 16th note delay. 2 is 8th, dotted 8th, quarter plus a 16th, whatever that is. I guess there's some crazy time value there. Dotted quarter. What are we up to? No, this would be a quarter. I don't know. I think it goes that way anyway. Let's try it out. So 8 should be half notes. That's the idea. Okay. Try and mess around with the volumes a little bit. Let's listen back. An idea. I want to take all of this information and copy it to what I think was the weakest of all the snares. This guy here. So we have that going on in the background, and I'm going to slowly fade that up. What am I doing? I'm going to do it with a utility. That'll make more sense. And then I might do some pitching effects as well too. I remember the first reason why I wanted to do that is because it needs to double before the rest do. Right here. Yeah, so it'll go a little earlier. Let's try that. All right. Another thing, I think at this point it's going to want a little bit of thinning out with a filter towards the end. Maybe also wash in some reverb. Let's try that. I really hate making these fills. I'm just not an effects guy. I actually had a really... I had a buddy... yeah, I won't say his name. His name is Rob. We'll just say Rob. And Rob had a really unique approach to composing where he would start off by structuring the whole macro structure of a song with builds and impacts and that kind of stuff. And he was also a really good sound designer, so then he would start to work on his synths and kind of incorporate them in. I feel like his strengths are exactly what my weaknesses are, which is sound design, something that I'm okay at. I just when I want to write a song, I don't want to be caught up in sound design too much, so I really have to do that on different days. And structuring, but for the most part, like effect structuring and atmospheric stuff and really kind of putting that final cherry on top. I'm more of a melody, harmony, and then my thing is I love to go through tons of presets, find a sound that's unique enough already, and find a unique playing style on the keyboard so that someone else may not have already thought of that combination of the sound plus the playing technique. I'm lucky enough that I'm from the school of when I was growing up, there wasn't production tutorials. This stuff just didn't exist. I literally am old enough to have seen the internet come to be kind of thing, and there weren't many books on this stuff, and if they were super outdated. So I focused on playing, and I played in many rock bands, played drums in some bands and stuff. So I try to take my strengths from having played with real people, with real instruments, and bring a little bit of that to the table, which is why I play keyboards when I DJ live. My own stuff, anyway. Let's listen to how that reverb sounds. I'm happy enough with that. Let's listen to the whole thing. I feel like there needs to be like a little je ne sais quoi on top. I don't know. Let's find out. Going to do a little bit of EQing over the whole thing, and that should sum that up. We're almost there. Yeah. Oh, am I going to do it? I'm going to do it. Here it comes. I'm going to add a riser with it. It pains me. Pains me. All right. And after that, I think I'm going to wrap this up because it's been 36 minutes. I like to keep it under an hour for sure if I can. Under half hour, under 45 minutes, somewhere around that area. So here we go. We're going to go MIDI track. We're going to go massive. So many people harp on massive, whatever the word is. They're harsh to it. And I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, Serum, I guess, is like the new one that everyone's loving. And don't get me wrong, I've tried Serum. It's great. It's really CPU intensive. Hopefully you have a great computer. I just feel like Massive hasn't been done, and we're not done with it yet. It's just like there's this whole mentality of like, you got to get the new thing and try it out and find new ways to use the new thing. It's like the old thing hasn't even been fully used yet. I mean, think about the guitar. It did not, like, people figured out that you could throw a distortion pedal on it, and within the first couple years, like, tons had been done with it already. But if we didn't continue to keep ourselves in that box and explore it, we wouldn't have come up with all these new ways to explore the guitar. Like, look at Tom Morello. He's a really good example from Rage Against the Machine and Audio Slave. Like, he finds crazy ways to use some simple pedals and also some more complex pedals too, but I like to keep myself in the box so I can kind of further develop a little bit more of what's going on with those instruments. So if you have an old instrument or an old piece of software or whatever that you're using, that's fine. Keep using it and really get good at it and really get unique with it and come up with something new, because that's something Serum, the new thing, isn't going to be able to do. It's not going to be able to replicate that perfectly. And while everyone else is focusing their attention that way, you can come up with something that they might not have been able to. That being said, Serum has the same open limitations, so to speak. Like, it's very open that way. So, I mean, you can use anything. It's just how you use it, right? So with Massive here, I'm just going to come up with something that's kind of trancey sounding, I guess, and then we're going to put a little pitch bend on it. So that's what I'm talking about. I can't go through presets without start just jamming around. By the way, if you haven't learned the blues scale, which comes from the pentatonic scale, learn that. That is, if you want to be able to like rip around and have fun, then do that. I taught a student once, he came in for trance digital music lessons, and in the very last lesson I showed him the blues scale, and he's like, why didn't you show me that from day one? Because it's not really associated with trance, but a lot of people, it's a cool trick. If you're not a keyboardist, it's a really cool trick. The idea is take a minor scale, get rid of the second note, get rid of the sixth note, and then add in a tritone. So then you're playing. And then the blue note, which is the tritone. That's what people use when they're soloing, and I think it's kind of like bumper bowling. It's kind of hard to hit the wrong notes at that point. But that note that you added in, just keep in mind that's for mostly sliding to neighboring notes. That sort of idea. Anyway, this isn't a lesson on blues playing or keyboarding. That's actually an alright one. It has a nice brassiness to it, a really nice reverb on it. I'm liking that. And I'm going to start it nice and low. That works. We're in D, so I'll start it on a D. And I'm not going to hold that entire time. Let's just stretch that out. And then there's our MIDI data stretched out as well. Let's make it yellow because it's an effect. Let's call it Riza. And then I'm going to go back into massive. I'm going to turn envelope 1. Remember, envelope 4 is the default. It looks like 2 and 3 are unaffected. 1 has something going on, so I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to take envelope 2. I'm going to crank up the attack. I'm going to crank up the decay or the sustain. And I'm going to keep the release nice and tight. And then I'm going to move that. Oh, no, there's already some pitch information going on. Let's try it anyway. Yeah, I think that might be short. I might turn it into a WAV file after and then stretch it. So let's try that out. Let's see what happens here. What if I did this? Nah, you know what? Okay. Sorry, I'm just back and forth in my own head right now. Let's freeze it, flatten it, and then stretch it. This Song a Week is brought to you in part by Tim Hortons. Send kids to camp next summer by buying a copious amount of coffee this winter. Okay. Flatten. Now we have audio. Yay. All right. It looks like something around here is kind of more common, like some continuity going on there. So I'm going to stretch that. What? Not what I was going for. All right, time out. Step back. Unfreeze. Unflatten. Okay. I think it was here-ish. I'm going to create the first part of the riser with no actual rise. Turn that off. And something like this. Kind of has that like hockey horn kind of thing going on. I'm happy enough with it. Whatever. Screw it. Let's group that. Riser. Add in an auto filter. Sweep out those lows, maybe below 120. Not too safe. Get close to the sub. Cool, I want it louder. Let's go with the utility for that. 5 decibels. And with that said, why don't we do a little fade in? So during the part where it stays on one pitch, it's going to work its way up there. Yeah, I'll mess around with that more later. It's kind of the idea anyway. So we have, you can see how I would go about making a riser, nothing too fancy. Sometimes I'll use rise and hit, which is part of Contact, and mess around with that, stretch it, create new layers, that kind of stuff. Right now I'm just using a synth that I thought was chancy enough. It kind of turned out to be more like an air horn at a hockey game. That works too. And I kind of like that it kind of held the pitch. I've heard that happen before in EDM, so Maybe they were under the same restrictions. Maybe they reached the top too soon and they just kind of had to hold it because the attack on the envelope of Massive can only go so slow. You could also use Portamento and try messing with that speed. Or one thing I do miss is I started on Reason. Actually, Kill the Noise started on Reason and then moved over to Ableton. So yeah, I'm not alone. And then before that, I was on EJ, and Savant was using the crap out of different types of EJs, which is cool. That's dating all of us old fogies. But yeah, I missed the ability in Reason to be able to pitch bend really easily. I could choose just like an octave or 5 semitones or whatever, and I could automate it all in. With Massive in Ableton, you can't actually automate this stuff to the point where you can see the automation. I can record the pitch bend wheel movements and it'll remember it, but it does some weird stuff where later it'll retranspose things if I haven't re-triggered the pitch bend wheel to reset back to 0. It's a pain. I really hope that Ableton can work that out because from what I understand, Fruity Loops has, or FL Studio as they call it now, has some really good built-in pitch bend engine. Even Reason does because it's all built-in synths. So I understand that Massive and Ableton, there's a disconnect there to be able to do the pitch bending. So hopefully that gets fixed. I would be doing a lot more pitch bending if I could. Anyway, is there anything else worth showing in this song? Not really. I could go through the mixing and all that kind of stuff. I do that a lot in other videos. I wanted to actually do some composing in front of you guys. So you got to see the build happen in this one, which is kind of cool. I'll definitely change it once I can hear it on speakers and I don't have the pressure of you guys watching. But right now we're just past 45 minutes, so I'd like to wrap up there. One more time, my name is Josh Cook, a.k.a. Seizures Palace. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you guys do have a comment, like I mentioned in the last video too, please feel free to throw me a compositional challenge. I might even try a trap song one day, who knows, but just stay away from country. I just don't want to do an in-the-box country song. It's not what I want to do. Anyway, feel free to throw me a challenge or just kind of say hi, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Don't forget, you stay glassy, Sand.